Hi, everyone, and welcome to the special simulcast of Neil Haley's show and the Storehouse Media Group Podcast. We're their host, Sherrie from Storehouse Media. Sherrie, we have a great guest that I know very well. My audience knows very well. But now we're going to get a different perspective of Sherrie interviewing her. Who's our guest today?
Our guest is Grace Lynks Jenkins, and she's somebody I've learned and known through working with her for the last how many years? It's been a while, right?
It's been like three.
Yeah. But anyway, welcome, Grace. It's great to have you on the show. And yeah, I wanted her to come on the show because what we've been working on is Grace has written this really it's a very captivating book called Sight. Just the simple word sight. And it's one of those kind of stories that when you walk away from it, it just kind of stays with you, which is a good thing because you've impressed people. But it's about a detective. He's a detective, but the reason he's a detective is because he has like this special sensory capability where he can go into people's minds and see things through their eyes and their thoughts. And so he works in a police precinct and they've got a serial killer going on. And you are such a descriptive writer. You're a big writer, meaning that you put a lot of detail so that people can feel like they're in the book with you. And that's something which, being a first time author, I usually have to work with authors on that and helping them, teach that skill. But you already came with it. I mean, just rolling with description. And when I first started working on your book several years ago, I mean, you were still in college, it was like, wow, this girl knows how to write. And I want to know, like, how did you learn how to write big?
Thank you. Well, it really all started when I was in high school, when I was younger. I would see things in my mind. That's how I write. I see something in my mind and then I'm writing it down and I'm wanting to capture all of the little things. And it started out with, I know we did some creative writing work in high school. I did a lot of writing on Wattpad and on some fan fiction sites years ago. And I think from there, using that helped me to practice so that when I finally had a coherent story that came to me in college, I was able to actually go in and write it with the amount of detail that we see in this final draft.
Well, it is an amazing book. I'm going to suggest it's May 26th. It's a book launch on May 26th. They can go into Amazon to get it. But it is a book, especially if you like psychological thrillers, it is something that will capture your attention. And that comes back to you got your master's degree in psychology, right? And
Yeah.
so on the book site, how did you get the premise for that book? What made you want to write this kind of book?
So it was actually a combination of several things. The first thing was seeing that initial opening scene in the book with my main character and what he's seeing in his nightmares. And then I started to think about some things and process some elements that I had learned in psychology, particularly social psychology. You see a lot of that in the book, aspects of social psychology, and even some more introspective psychology, as in what somebody with depression actually goes through. What does their day to day life look like? All of this that I was learning in college at the time helped me to go in and write about this experience that this character is having throughout the book.
And one thing you talked about in the book was cutting,
Yes.
and which is something that uh, people do. And we worked at that, and you came to me and you're like, well, thank you for, you know, pretty much giving you permission to put that in the book. But the thing is that is something that goes on in today's world, especially with young people. But you were able to, I think, in your book, I think you were able to kind of get the reader to understand more through the main character and in the whole cutting um, situation of why people will cut when they get depressed or down or whatever. And so I thought that, so you actually hit upon some things that need to be talked about. And I don't think a lot of people want to talk about it, but you did in your book.
Yeah, a lot of people, they do not like to touch certain aspects of mental health. Anything involving that, especially in younger men and women as well, people just want to gloss over that because it's ugly. It's not something that a lot of people like to deal with. It's not nice, right? Because you're obviously having, self-harm where the person is harming themselves. They're in this much pain. And a lot of times people just like to gloss over pain. They don't want to think about it. But I do think that there is some importance in sharing those aspects of life. This is something that we should talk about because this is very common, especially in people who are younger, especially in men. This is something that is going on a broad scale. It has reached a point in especially Western society where we are seeing an increased uptick in mental disorders across the board, whether you're a man or woman, whether you're a teenager or maybe a young adult. Even older adults can also struggle. So it is important to detail that. And one of the best ways to do that, to present that in a way that people can relate to, is by introducing that into your story if it is necessary for your plot. And if this is something that your character would truly do, I do think that there is some merit in putting those kinds of dark themes within your books. As long as it's handled appropriately, there is value in doing that because you're putting that truth on the table and telling people this is something that we need to pay attention to. This is something important that we don't need to ignore, especially in this day and age. It is so very important. Mental health is one of the biggest aspects of why we are seeing a lot of issues right now in people's lives all across the board. Because if mental health issues do not get addressed, then they just build up over time and eventually there's going to be some kind of release. It's either going to be toward oneself or toward others, but there is going to be a release.
Yeah, kind of like a pressure cooker, right?
Yeah.
And you don't. Yes, it's good to have it on the table because otherwise, as I compare it, it's like putting a wet towel in a closet and letting it sit in the dark, and you're just going to get mold, and it's just going to grow and grow and grow until that towel is taken out or washed or whatever. But as long as it's in a closet and not spoken about and forgotten or glossed over, it's going to get worse. So anyway, good for you for actually tackling that topic. And you have a lot of other topics in the book. There's just so many interesting characters. And honestly, in working on your book, I had no idea who was the perpetrator, who was the person behind all these murders that were going on until it got towards the end. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, wow, I should have seen that coming. But it was such a good one. And your faith plays such a big part in your writing. You are a follower of Jesus, and you're just proud of that, and it comes through in your writing. It's not a Christian book, so you're not going to overwhelmingly get preached at in the book, but there's a theme in there. And I can't help sometimes but think about oh, what was the name of the lion, what would just
Aslan?
yes, yes, Aslan, right. and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and The Chronicles of Narnia. And I just, kind of like, wow, it wasn't like that, but it was a reminder to me, like, it was kind of that kind of line. It wasn't a Christian theme. It wasn't a Christian book, but it had a thread of Christianity in it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that my faith actually shines through in the book. One thing for me that's always been important, especially whenever you're dealing with the topic of faith or anything like that, you can't be super preachy at people a lot of times, because that preachiness tends to drive people away because it feels like you're morally grandstanding. Instead, what, in my opinion, needs to be done is that we show something realistically. We tell people this is how the world is. This is how faith works, by presenting them an example of how faith plays out realistically in day-to-day life, because it's not sunshine and rainbows. It's not people suddenly being cured of cancer. It's not people constantly wishing for a child and then getting what they want. The reality of it is life is suffering. In many cases, life is suffering. So whenever you're dealing with that, you have to hold that reality and also hold the reality of, but God is greater. And Jesus came and died for our sins. We live in an imperfect world. We are all sinful. We're all inherently evil. But Jesus came, he died for our sins. He laid it down and he said, I'm going to take this sin. I'm going to die. I'm going to be the sacrifice. And then he, of course, resurrected from the dead after 3 days. And for me, that's very important. The idea of, no, we're not perfect. Nobody's going to be perfect. Life isn't going to work like that. Your situation may not change. It's you who changes through your relationship with Jesus Christ. And I think that's what a lot of people miss, especially with the health and wealth gospel. A lot of people miss that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Sherrie, we're almost close to running out of time. Best place people can go. Grace has a website, but anything else to add, Sherrie?
Yeah, I just want more. May 26th, the book site is being launched. We're excited about that, the launching of the book. And just, go get your copy. On May 26th, you'll get a really good deal. And I think we're doing it on Amazon.
All right. GraceLynksJenkins.com to find information on Grace. I appreciate it. And go to StorehouseMediaGroupPod.com for all things publishing, podcasting, and media. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Storehouse